I actually held, I think a few weeks ago, you guys voted me as worst intro.
I was saying hello to y'all, like, hello, we're on.
Oh, we're on. Hello.
Yeah.
Guys,
Jason, why don't you show us a true intro to this week's
welcome to the
Fishing
show,
Report?
guys. You listen to Tampa Fishing Outfitters Fishing Report. Captain Rick Liles in the house. Captain Jason. Captain Beers.
Beers.
James with the first name. You got to go Beers first. You have
Beers.
a last name
I'm good
like
with that.
Beers.
Yeah,
That
last
is
name
money,
like Beers.
son.
That's right.
That is money. That is money. Guys, we're here to talk some fishing. Get your week started off right. Usually Monday's not a good day, but when you're in the studio and
It's
you
a great
talk
day.
fishing, it
Yeah.
takes that rough day of work
That's right.
and turns it into a great day.
Yeah.
for
Get
the
you
rest of the
thinking
week.
about the next weekend and what it has in
Yeah.
store. I saw some folks today on social media sharing like the wind forecast for this weekend. Supposed
it
to be
bad?
like glass.
Oh, really?
Not
We got the
good.
King of the
I don't-
Beach tournament.
Oh, that ain't
Dude.
possible.
Yeah,
That's weird.
it's
That's-
really weird.
That's not possible.
I think there's going to be some boat traffic on the water this weekend.
Well, I went to, I've had some power pole issues, and I went to JL Marine today
Fixed.
and got what I needed. And, man, by the way, thanks for the hookup, guys.
Can't say it enough.
I know. You always make it happen. And
It's
there's
like if
never no questions, all that. But it was funny because I go in and, if you've never been there, everybody speaks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they go out of their way to be friendly.
Yeah.
But, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing? And it was like I talked to like 6 people when I was there, and 3 of them like, yeah, it's a Monday.
Yeah, it's a Monday.
It's a Monday.
we're here to make your Monday better, though. At the
Yeah.
end of the day,
Well, they weren't having that this morning, but they were happy and everything. But you could tell that they was
don't need these. No
was
more today.
looking for the next weekend.
Yep.
But yeah, thanks to the good people at
So you're all
Powerful.
squared away there?
Got me going.
Deal.
Well,
Yeah.
we got a good show planned for you guys today. We're gonna talk. We're gonna obviously talk fishing like we always do.
What's up, Ty?
There's been a lot of stuff.
Chatter.
Chatter been talked about the trout situation and redfish closure. From what I understand, is going to continue.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we're gonna chop that
Well,
up.
they haven't.
They haven't announced it.
Yeah,
I think that's just our feel.
But
Maybe.
the-
I don't know.
I put it this way: they moved the IFA to Crystal River.
I know that. Yeah.
So it's on assumption, but the assumption probably is that it's going to happen.
But the meeting is
10th of May or
I thought it was
1st of
the
May.
first. I think the meeting is the first.
It might be the 1st of May.
Yeah.
Maybe what's up, Aaron? Maybe we should get that, and because I think that we need to put the word out there and invite more people.
Yeah, I'm pretty
to
sure
it.
it's the first because somebody, and it may have been Raphael, said that he thought it was the 10th, and
Yeah,
then it was
the first.
The first. So
Well, it seemed like they'd give them a little more time to have the meeting and digest the information or whatever and make a call, right?
well, I mean, they need to get with the small group of influential crybabies and see what that group wants to do.
Right. I hear you. What's up, Manny?
No, you don't.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. But
I
anyway,
Well, we're gonna talk that.
We're gonna talk about that later. But if you've watched any of the social media about it, it's kind of been ping ponging back and forth, and there's two sides to it.
Sure.
And the one thing that I can say is there's a couple guys out there just kind of, I don't know if they're just talking to hear themselves or what, but their thing is, the guides don't want you keeping 4 trout, and I'm thinking, well, what good is that for a guide to tell somebody you're going to get less fish?
Right.
So it's not about cleaning fish. I mean, every guide I know is pretty proficient at cleaning a fish, so that one extra fish is not going to make a difference. I think, speaking for myself and for probably every other guide out there, you're thinking of the future,
Yeah, I think it's about sustainability.
And it has nothing to do with emotion. It has to do with what we've been seeing in our area.
Yeah.
Every area is different, and I think that's where some.
Well, that's a nice thing they did is there's so many regions with that proposal. But hey, let's get our fishing reports because we got to probably bring some people up to speed on what that proposal looks like. There might be some people sitting here saying, "What are they talking about?"
And Jason went to the last meeting, so he can tell you the process of it. But the meeting that I sat in on, the one we had at was it Monsters and Minnows? Is that where that meeting was at?
Yeah.
That one, I can promise you, there was one of the big boys from the FWC there, and I can promise you the decisions aren't about emotion.
I don't think that was one of the big boys. That was Eric's son. He's the
big boy?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
the
dude
big
that
boy,
everybody answers to.
he made it perfectly clear that decisions would not be based on emotion. They would be based on science. And that's something that somewhere along the lines here, we've got people thinking that there's a group of people, and I guess I'm included in that group, that was pushing for that. And I was glad when they did some of the closures.
They're needed.
But I was only going by what I saw in my waters, and I don't think it's been any secret. Anybody that spends any amount of time fishing, and I'm not talking about somebody that's fishing once or twice a month, but people that are on the water pretty regular, you can definitely tell there's a trend and there's a pattern, and the pattern is we're catching less quality trout. I mean, yeah, you can still go catch trout. You can still go get a limit of trout, but what used to take
For how long?
What used to take 30 minutes to get a 3-man limit, 4-man limit, now might take you 3 or 4 hours, and it's got to be directly proportional, at least in my opinion, with the amount of pressure we have on the water in our area. There's still areas where you can go catch, and there's still places in our waters that you can go get your limit pretty quick, but there's not as many of those places anymore. So when you keep adding all these, and I'm not begrudging anybody for fishing, man, the more people on the water, the better. It helps our industry. But when Tampa Bay's got 600 boats a weekend every Saturday on it versus 10 years ago when it had 200 boats on every Saturday.
Numbers are numbers,
math is math. So
the trout in the last 10 years can't, to my knowledge, they haven't learned how to reproduce faster to keep up with the population or the number of harvests. They can't say, well, we need to spawn more and faster and better.
Right.
So, and let's bring them in. So we're going to have this conversation now. Let's bring them in the fold. So the proposal, I think, that stirred everything up was specific to West Central. Was changing the limit from 4 to 3 per person.
1 trout per person. I mean,
with the addition of making it clear that the guide himself can't harvest a bag limit,
which
I've never done, and most people don't. I don't think there's a lot of guides out there doing it. So that's neither here nor there in my opinion. But when you look at the number, and you talked about the boat traffic, if the number of people fishing for a species goes up and we continue to harvest the same amount, the depletion is going to be at a quicker rate.
100%.
You can't argue that. That's not science. That's not opinion. That's not emotion. That's math.
Right.
You can't argue it. And the trout, they can't evolve that quickly to change their spawning habits to keep up with it. So I don't know. For me, one fish isn't going to make the difference for me.
No, I don't think
I guess I could see.
Apparently, it's only going to make the difference for one person.
Well, the common angler I could see where they could take issue with it if they say, well, that immediately affects the number of fillets on the dinner table, right? I guess I can see it, but I just can't see in good conscience how if somebody's is an avid angler can't see the value in if there's 600 boats out there, or let's say this: there's 100 boats fishing for trout in the entire bay. That means that. And there's 2 people on every boat. So instead of going from 8 trout, it goes to 6 trout that they can keep.
Right.
Well, guess what? That's 200 trout every weekend day. 200 trout per day, and that's just a small sample. I'm sure there's a lot more people targeting trout than that.
Let me use this. People seem to not want to trust the FWC or the people in charge because they feel like it's going to turn into them telling you what you can and can't do. They're not telling you what you can and can't do, but they're putting laws and regulations in place. And somebody made a comment about, they're not going to tell me what I can. Well, it's like you can run through an intersection with a red light, but you can get a ticket. There's laws that have to be followed, and there is typically they don't just make laws. I'm sure there's always the exception, and bears and sheep's head and everything else have been compared to a conversation where it's been trout.
Right.
I would be the first to tell you, I personally don't know the whole bear thing. And I'm
either.
sure that there are some rules that are flawed a little bit. Not everything's perfect.
Good point.
But I can tell you this, that when I've been to these meetings, and I've been to a few of them, it has been a good experience. I wish I could go to the May 1st one. I cannot go. There's an obligation. Danny has stepped up to the plate and is going to go in for the Florida Guides Association. He's going to be at that meeting. We're going to read a proposal, and we're gonna make a, I can't remember what the proposal is off the top of my head, but they're gonna have something. They're gonna do a recommendation. All that does is you get up on the podium and you make a recommendation as per the Florida Guides Association. It isn't a closed room where they make a recommendation. They go, oh, hey, the Florida Guides and Jason and Rick and James said that they need to shut trout down for 10 years, so that's what we're going to do. That's not the way it works.
That's not the way it works.
Yes, they do listen to you, but it's kind of due process. Like they have,
and there are a lot of other opinions being
shared. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, there was a commercial guy that was, in my opinion, way off in left field when we went to the snook thing.
Hey, Chris.
But that was his opinion.
Right.
Like, I didn't agree with it. He probably didn't agree with what I had said. But if you go to these meetings before you start criticizing the FWC, go to the meeting. I can't say how many times I've preached that on Facebook when people talk. Go to the meeting, see the due process. When you do that, you will see that they don't just, it's not just we go up on a podium and talk. No, it's actual scientists going up there with documentation on a PowerPoint that you can see that tells you every fact on why they're basing their decision. Mm-hmm. It's not a bunch of guys going up there and saying that they need to shut everything down. It's facts.
And they say, "Oh, well, that sounds convincing."
Yeah,
guys.
I mean, that is literally like that's what irritates me when I see some of these people talking.
They're
like,
inviting you to the table to have the conversation.
Yeah, like,
but they have the data.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
and they're going to take the data and everyone's opinions and try to make the best call.
Well, they have the scientists presenting the data to the board so they can make an educated decision, and they make the decision in front of everybody.
Right.
I mean, it's not like it's closed door stuff. This is open to the public, and I can't. It is a learning experience. I've been to the Snook Symposium. I've been to 2 meetings, and it's been, all 3 of them have been well worth every penny that I lost for my time, and whatever fuel. It was well worth it. I learned more, and it made me a better fisherman.
Well,
I learned more about snook in one day than I probably did in 10 years of my own life trying to figure it out by listening to scientists talk.
Do what
they do.
It's better to be proactive on something like this. And I said something the other day that got a couple guys were like, yeah, that that's putting it pretty simple, but it makes sense. I don't want trout to be the new buffalo.
Right.
You know,
there you go.
You know,
yeah, that does make
years
perfect
ago
sense.
there was how many million buffaloes, and they just thought it was an endless supply.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We harvested the buffalo until there was no buffalo left, and I don't want Tampa Bay to be trout in Tampa Bay to be the new buffalo. I want my grandkids to be able to catch trout.
I might say something controversial. This might stir the pot.
Okay.
But let me ask you guys a hypothetical question. I think that because there seems to be, I mean, I've seen it in black and white on social media that there seems to be an opinion or a group of opinions that it might be the guides that are pushing this, right? And I'm not gonna. I am. You know, I'm for it if that's what it takes to sustain the species. Let me ask you this. Would you be willing?
Buffalo burgers are tasty.
Let me ask you this. Let's say that they threw out that on a guide trip, your customers can only keep 2, and our recreational guys can still keep 4. Would you be okay with it?
You know,
instead of everyone at 3.
If I'll tell you this. So you're saying guys can only keep 2?
Like, it's 3 people get on your boat, they can only keep 2 apiece. But if they went fishing on their own boat, they can keep 4 apiece.
If the science backs the data,
but I don't know how
that makes that. But
listen,
I don't know how you can
this
make.
This isn't a real world conversation.
Yeah, no, I
this
don't know
is
how you can have any science back that up.
Sure.
If it did, then I'd be okay with it. Like if you show me data, just like they do in the meetings.
Right.
If you tell me that that's going to make our fishery better, I'll take one for the team.
That's what I guess I'm asking is, are you willing to?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. All right.
Let me explain something to people watching
because I
this.
would.
Because
I think most
people have
would.
criticized the small special interest group. Well, the special interest group, if that special interest group is doing stuff on their own time to better our fishery, and not getting paid, by the way, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I think Danny said the same thing. I'll take that. I'll be that guy. But it doesn't benefit us to close down species. People, we constantly every day have to explain to people why we can't.
Good one, Eric.
But we constantly have to explain on every trip why we can't keep trout, snook. How many times you say catch 50 snook?
Yeah.
Why can't we keep them? I have to explain. What I do is I try to educate my customers why we can't keep them, and I tell them, I said, how old do you think that snook was you caught? And they're like, I don't know. I said, that snook's about 2 to 3 years old. It doesn't spawn until it's 7 years.
Right.
I said, that's the main problem with snook. They do not spawn. A lot of people don't even understand the point. And you know where I learned this? I went to the Snook Symposium. I learned it. Like, I knew that beforehand. But my point being is it makes it harder for us to try to explain, talk our way out of catching fish. If we just keep everything.
Well, you know, here's the thing, though, and I'm sure it's the same with you guys. When I explain stuff to people on the boat about why they can't.
How many people are upset
There's
about
people that are disappointed.
They understand.
They always say, yeah, well, I get it. Yeah, I get that. You know, you're looking out for the resource.
Yeah.
And some people don't, and you know what? So be it. So be it. You can't talk some people in or out, but and you know what we're not even talking about?
I knew
so
you
we're
were coming to it. I know where you're going.
No, but we're not even. We're just talking about population. Don't even throw the fact that we had the worst red tide, I think, possibly in the history that they could document. Like last year, people were like, well, man, that red tide was bad. Why can't we keep fish? I was like, did you see the pictures of thousands upon thousands of dump trucks of fish last year? Like, you don't just replenish them in 6 months.
Yep.
I
Hey,
mean,
Manny, that's correct. So that's part of the proposal.
But I don't know any guy that
and I
was
can
ever
tell you
doing
this right
that.
now, while it isn't a rule at the moment, that is not a common practice, and it's certainly not something endorsed
I
here.
lost a client over that because he wanted to keep my fish, and I said, look, I said, I'm just not doing
I'm just here
that.
to drive the boat and point you in.
Yeah, I actually called Billy Wheat from the FWC and said, Billy, what's the rule on this? And he says, that's kind of a gray area. He goes, some fish you can, some fish you can't.
It does differ between fish.
And I said, well, you know what? We're just going to make things simple. I'm not keeping my limit on anything. I never have.
Not
and
snapper,
I'm
not
start.
mackerel, not trout.
So,
and
the guy started fishing with someone else, and that's
so
whatever.
So be it.
You have to, and I know it's probably, you know, I'm established, Rick's established, James, you've done a great job in your short amount of time.
I'm green in the gill.
I feel even worse for you guys because you probably are under the gun, the newer guides, to make every customer happy, because I know when I started, I always took the approach.
I feel that way, but I don't feel the answer is meat on the table. You know,
Right.
like if I get that request, then I accommodate that request the best way I know how, and a lot of times that's changing targeted species.
And that's what somebody put. Somebody,
Simple.
maybe one or two people have put that. Look, if you got to put that, if your family's that big, go catch something else. My thing is, go catch something else, or put another family member on the boat and let them keep their limit.
Well, let's face it too. What we do is not like fill the cooler type fishing. Yeah, you want to put some fish to keep home, but it's more of a sport fishing. We're snook, reds, trout,
right.
And then you got mackerel and stuff.
Entertainment.
Yes,
factor.
It is. I think there's, it gets a little off topic, but I just can't say enough that you need to educate yourself, go to the meetings. I know it's tough. You probably got to work, and most you can't. You got jobs, you got life. I get it, but maybe go online. Maybe I think they had cameras recording this. This stuff might be available on YouTube or something. But I think if people educate themselves a little bit more, they would be a little less to go just throw stuff out there.
Right.
That's like the offshore thing.
At the same time, I respect just like everyone needs their opinion. There's
I respect their opinion, but what I don't like,
you disagree with
is. Yeah, certainly. But when they start, saying you're a crybaby.
Well, yeah, of
and,
course.
And you're trying to be self-serving,
hey,
and that's just stupid.
Listen, to cut our nose off to spite our face, to be considered self-serving.
We're
gonna harvest less fish
makes it harder.
To the person coming from out of state who doesn't know the history of the fishery. Listen, that's not doing us any good, buddy.
Well,
whoever could think that, it doesn't. In fact, we're willing to take one on the chin to make sure that generations in the future have a fishery.
You just said my point.
So I don't get that accusation, but whatever. But I do. What I do respect is the opposite opinion.
Well, that accusation was coming from a guy that's got commercial background.
And
so he's just looking to throw fire out there because his feelings got hurt, and it is what it is.
I don't dislike or have a grudge against commercial guys. They're out there making a living just like we are, and just like the recreational guy wants to take a few fish home. We're all in the same boat. We just probably don't agree on stuff because the agendas are a little different, so to speak. But we're in between commercial and recreational. Mm-hmm. We abide by recreational laws, but technically we're commercial, but we're not. It's kind of a weird deal.
Registration.
So we're somewhere in between, caught in the middle, which is okay.
Sell fish.
Can't sell fish, but customers can take it and they pay me. So it's
the number of fish I put in the cooler is probably not a whole lot of money in it anyway.
Yeah, if we had to go by that, we'd be in some serious trouble.
I clean fish at the end of the day and put it in the bag. And one day last week,
this is good for dinner.
We went out and we hammered a snook, and we kept one trout, and we caught it. It was with the snook, and we caught it, and it was a keeper. And I says, if you want a fish to take home and eat it, I said that's fine. He's like, yeah, you know what? It was just him and his dad. And he goes, yeah, they were here on vacation. He goes, yeah, go ahead. We'll cook that up tonight. And so we got done, and I cleaned that fish and put it in a bag and handed it to him. And he held it up, and he goes, son, this is the most expensive fish that we have ever eaten.
Yeah, man.
I've heard that one
before. We're going to enjoy every morsel of this.
Yeah. They earned it one way or another. But, that's just so I don't see that angle of saying we're self-serving to make our at least our marketing tougher, to get the phone to ring, and we're making it harder on ourselves.
Right.
So that to me that just doesn't make sense, and I really try to see all angles, and I can respect anybody who's of the opinion of wanting to keep those limits where they're at. I can respect where they're coming from. Just happen to disagree with it. But my reason is not even for my business. There's no advantage to my business to keep less fish. There's zero. The advantage is so that my son can go out and live and have the experiences I've had.
We're on the same page, and that's where I just didn't understand the whole crybaby self-serving deal. So,
yeah.
Anyways, we definitely encourage everyone to get familiar with that. The meeting's Wednesday. The first?
Yep.
Who's Eric fishing with Wednesday?
Me. Yeah.
I'm keeping it all.
Oh, dude.
Eric, every fish
tell you,
that hits the gunnel, I want you to ask if it's a keeper over and over and over.
Every time.
Well, Eric, I'm glad you said that, buddy, because I've
one?
heard about a wonderful bite on ladyfish.
Yeah.
Ladyfish tastes good.
And the sail cats, or the gaff tops are running. So
nice.
if hopefully the frozen shrimp are still in stock.
Yeah.
Eric, and I may even have you pick those up on the way to meet me.
Yeah, this is a solid plan.
But yeah, we got a good bite, man. I got the steel leaders all ready to go, ladyfish and gaff tops. You're in trouble.
Little triangle weights.
So let's talk a little fishing,
man.
We
got off the chart.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to talk about like some of the things. So let's get into like what we've been doing lately. But I thought that the last 3 days pattern or 4 days, let me say that. Before that front that ripped through Friday, and the days after, and how we had to adjust. I noticed some big things on the water in that particular time frame.
I fished Friday. Couldn't believe I fished Friday, but the bite was. Well, that storm had rolled through, and I'm looking at the rate, and I had some customers that Brett Norris canceled his deal, and I had some guys been going with me for years, him and his wife, and we. They're here just to fish for the weekend. So I'm like, all right. And I had them Saturday. Or no, wait, Friday. I don't know. I had them one of the days. But whatever day it rained. That was Friday. And, I said, I think we might be able to get it. My phone's saying 1. The news is saying 11. I was like, all right, let's just. Woke up 6:30, picked them up at 8. 9 o'clock it starts raining. Fortunately, I live on the water. It makes it easier. I said, Jay, let's just hang this up. I'm going to go home. I got some stuff I can do. They were staying at Little Harbor. And I said, I'm going to drop you off. I said, and when it gets done, he goes, we ain't got nothing to do. We're just going to hang out. I said, I'll call you when it starts raining, and I'll pick you up. So I picked them up about 1, and we whacked them pretty good. We got some overslot reds, a bunch of snook. Yeah. But, man, it was windy. I'm talking white caps in the back country. And but we had a banner day. And
so it was Friday.
That was Friday. Yes, you're right. Then Saturday we had we'll cancel Brett's deal one day, but
Saturday was the day after that weather, and it was a bluebird sky.
Yeah, Saturday actually did good. I was surprised. I fished the afternoon.
Well, the tides have been terrible, and the snook haven't cared.
They have.
Yeah. They got a little picky this morning. This afternoon we whacked them pretty good.
I didn't fish today, but yesterday there was slow start, but I think that's because of where I was at, and pretty good finish. So
yeah, they Saturday I was like, I thought I had a double. I screwed my schedule up, and so I ended up running. I had to go in the afternoon. Worked out. Got bait 10, picked them up at 12, and these guys have been going for years, and we got in some backcountry stuff, and we got some overslot reds, 32s. Got about 5. Got a bunch of snook. I was surprised the bite was that good. I'm thinking, man, this ain't gonna be good. Day after a front, and took Sunday off, and then today. Had 2 trips in the morning. The tide was the best tide was in the morning. Fished that incoming, low water, got in some potholes, and the bite was. There was a lot of snook. I can tell you that new moon is moving fish around.
Yeah, it is.
I noticed these snook were coming out of the passes, and they were actually out on the outside flats. And you'd see 1 or 2 females, the big ones, and you see a bunch of males, and I think they're out there making babies because they were out on the open water. But they really didn't want to eat. Then this afternoon I said, all right, well, we're going to fish this crappie outgoing tide, and we whacked them pretty good. So it's been a little different, but good. But I tell you, April is a tough month out front. These fish aren't real hungry, and you give them an excuse not to eat, and it's going to be a tough bite. Where March, you can just about any day, as long as you get out, it's good. So it's been good.
Tonight. Okay, I didn't know because we're halfway.
None of us even know how anyway. So
we're afraid. We're afraid.
All right, we'll be back. But we're gonna stick around and talk fishing. Here's what I noticed. I fished Thursday. I was supposed to fish an event Upper Bay. Friday it got canceled. Big corporate event. Thursday, the weather was a little different than they called for. Like that system was moving through early, like you saw the cloud cover coming. The wind started picking up.
Early on what they said.
Man, but when that happened, that bite, I couldn't get away from fish. I mean, and I couldn't get these guys to agree to go in. I'm like, we're already in an hour overtime, but we're every cast fish. Saturday morning I wake up and we get on the water and the sun comes up and it's just bluebird skies, high pressure. You know it is. And the first thing I noticed that morning was, and we talked about this, getting the bait. And I know I'm not the only one, so I know for a fact that this was a problem throughout the bay. Didn't matter what region you were on. You probably saw some struggle, and those bait fish wouldn't come to the chum like they had been previously if you've been getting bait in shallow water. Made it happen, but boy, every Saturday, and it carried on into Sunday, it was that middle of the day, like that morning when the tide actually was moving. And I know we were on fish because after I'm done, I'm trolling motoring through and looking at them. They just did not want to agree. But like you said, kind of that afternoon, almost when it got slack and getting ready to turn, couldn't do anything wrong. So I just think that morning was just tricky. And I noticed the response rate of the bait fish,
well, it was a little chillier. I don't know.
The water
temp was
not much different. The water temperature really didn't change. It was the air temperature, from what I saw.
It was probably that high pressure, man. The fronts, they do funny stuff. Bait fish is just like regular fish.
Yeah,
they get affected by high pressure.
Kind of show the same behavior.
Finicky. They got tails. They swim, but I got bait at 10 easy. But then hearing what you guys had to struggle, that's tough.
The first 2 hours of the morning, it was just not happening. There was boats buzzing all over trying, hey, let me go to this hole, let me go to that hole. And these are guys that I have a lot of respect for and their ability to procure bait and put fish over the rail.
Yeah.
But one thing, so like when you're facing that situation, right, you got this high pressure day, because here's what tends to happen for me. Let me just speak for myself. Client gets on the boat and said, my God, what a beautiful day it is today.
Yeah.
There's not a cloud in the sky. It's 75 degrees.
So you think.
So what are some of the things, because that high pressure, we know it shuts down fish, but there might be some folks out there trying to connect the dots as to why they're struggling on such a gorgeous day, like we had Saturday, but it's the day after the front. So, like, what are some of the things when you're in that situation that you've done? I mean, whether it's cut bait,
Well, you got to. To me, the fish typically slow down. They'll still eat. You have to entice them.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of had that situation today. It was kind of like a high pressure day in the morning, then the bite went off in the afternoon. But if your first thing is whatever you're doing, if it's not working, you got to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
We were freelining greenbacks. I felt like today I didn't have thread fins or sardines, and I really needed them because I was watching fish sitting underneath the boat eating crap.
Mm-hmm.
And the greenbacks will work, but I don't feel like they work as good as the dead, stinky stuff. But you got to slow your process down. Cut bait. Other thing I'll do, Cajun Thunder floats, man. Sometimes with snook, they're territorial and they'll play with the baits. They're not real hungry, but if you see 20 snook in a pothole and they won't eat a free line, and you don't have a lot of cut bait, or maybe they're not hitting the cut bait, sometimes they want to take a float and just start. Throw it, pop, 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 let it sit.
Mm-hmm.
Pop. I'll see them come up and just tug it under. And what it is, it's almost like a bass bed, and I think you're irritating them to the point where they're just like, get this thing out of my face.
Yep.
And that float just popping just drives them nuts. So that's basically the three things I will do. You just have to slow everything down. You're fishing an area that's one of the biggest problems I have is, if you're fishing an area and it's constant action, like you roll up, you throw chum, bait, fish, and then you get that high pressure sit on you. You go to that same area and the fish are there. You throw the chum.
Same tide stage, maybe.
Yeah, yep. Same tide. You throw the chum and you're like, oh, okay, didn't see a whole lot happen. I was like, all right, let's throw some baits out. And you're on that high intensity bite where you're just hurry. Well, what I've learned is take a deep breath, stop, slow everything down because the fish are slow.
Yeah.
They're still going to eat most of the time. You just have to figure them out. And a lot of this stuff is just like, I used to didn't do that, and I would struggle in these days.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things about being a charter captain, you have to figure out, if there's fish there, figure out what triggers them. If you get a school redfish and you're on incoming tide, they won't bite. Well, maybe it's the tide. I had that situation. I found a small group of fish kind of by myself, was nice. Not a big, there's maybe 15 to 30 fish. And I went there and they're 30, they're studs, 28 to 32 inch. Could not get these fish to eat. And I'm by myself, got them in the corner. They're in this little cove. They're floating up.
Mm-hmm.
Flip a bait. Went there one day. Couldn't figure it out, and our computer just crashed. But what I ended up doing is I went back, and these fish were roaming in this cove. The cove's pretty big, and I just basically said, I'm going to sit here for a while. Once I figured out, and it was kind of I fished up there some, but I hadn't really figured out the tidal flow.
Right.
Once I started looking around, we sat in there for a while. I caught a snook here, a snook there. And I noticed that on the incoming tide, the tide was flooding that flat up into that corner. So what I'd figured out is, let's just sit here and try to draw the fish. The best thing is to bring fish to you, not chase fish.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up getting them. And I caught, in the process, it was pretty wild. It was a spot it was one of those spots that's, I'm going to call it a Travis spot, not a Jason spot. I'm going to call it a Travis spot because it takes a lot of patience, but it ends up going off.
Pays off for him.
And and I've learned to sit on stuff more, but earlier, Rick will tell you, Greg McCullough used to make fun of me. He'd say, see me run by one way and run. He goes, man, you burn a lot of fuel. I used to say, I don't care, man. I'm going to catch fish.
Yeah.
And that was my thing. And now I've learned to slow the process down, dissect an area a little bit more, give it a chance. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. But what I'd figured out is once this tide started flooding in, you really got these fish. But you had to sit there for like 30 minutes and catch a snook.
And, I've noticed this week 2 different occasions that I was about to pull the plug and let's go somewhere else. And I said, I'm going to give it. Well, the first time I cranked the motor to leave and we hooked up.
That's just the motor bite.
And then we stopped and we stayed, and then it was like they just started eating. And the other time, I said, man, I want to go. I said, let's give it a couple more minutes. And we'd been there like 15 minutes and caught 1 or 2 fish.
Right.
And I said, let's give it a few more minutes. And which is, I don't have patience. I don't. I'm not good at that. And man, thank goodness I stayed because it just immediately started getting good.
Well, and it helps too.
Same deal. I saw that happen.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Is to back that up. To bring you in the fold. We were talking about like when you're in that day after the front high pressure situation. You're pretty confident there's fish, and they just don't seem to be responding.
Bluebirds, guys.
What kind of steps do you take? Because I was saying, that's kind of what it was like Saturday for me is starting out. And I talked to some other guys, and they went through the same thing. I know it was a common issue where client steps on the boat. Man, what a beautiful day.
Right.
And then you're thinking, holy cow, not a cloud in the sky.
A lot of times is a good opportunity if you have the right clientele to do some dead bait.
So that's what I was going to say. That's one of the first things I'll go to is try to, you said slow down the presentation. I'll try to stop the presentation.
There is no slower presentation.
There's no slower than that. Put a dead one on. And I'll tell you a story that happened to me on Saturday at the end of the day that really affirms that. But I didn't have frozen threadfin or anything with me to be able to do that. So what I just started doing was just taking the greenbacks and just cutting them in half and putting them out there, and it worked like a charm. Mm-hmm. Then when the bite got really good, it seems like that activity when it comes to snook and redfish and trout and the flats species, you get 1 or 2 things going, then they start to get a little competitive with one another, especially if they're in a bunch, whether it's a school of redfish, a pot of snook, or a pot full of trout. It seems like where there's it starts that chain reaction.
Get a couple fish eating.
So, we were kind of seeing that. I was struggling throughout the morning, but I know those fish were there. I could see the fish were there, but they just wouldn't pop off on the chum, or they would, and they wouldn't eat the ones with hooks in them. They're taking an extra second or 2 to look at it. We went to that dead bait, and it started things. Mm-hmm. And then that spot kind of built up. Then I started noticing some of those chummers that maybe didn't get hit 20, 30 minutes later after I'd already wanted to leave, starting to see that random pop way away from the boat. And we're like, all right, put a little more out there, and now let's switch to live. And now they're eating that. So I saw that happen at one place. Another place I went to, we had to use these baits that just been on there so long they were dying.
Right.
They were just sitting out there with no activity for so long. Then a guy's just doing the slow reel, dragging the ball at the bottom. And I was like, hey, all right. And he's like, yeah, I was just slowly retrieving it. And then, they throw new baits out there, do the same thing, and guy does the same thing. He's like, again.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, let's start trying that. So you're right, slowing it down, and don't be afraid to stop that presentation altogether where you just say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to put a bait stuck there, and let them smell it, find it, do whatever they need to do, because they're just not in the mood to chase them.
Right.
And we get like that. There's just days you wake up where you just don't have the same amount of energy. So.
Well, there's days you want to go to Wing House. There's days. Well, Rick don't ever want to go to Chili's. But there's days you just want to eat something different.
Yeah,
or do something
you want to
different.
change it up a little bit.
Days where you don't want to roll out of bed.
Yeah.
I mean, fish. They're not the same all the time. Every day's a little different. So you have to adapt to try to figure them out. You'll never figure them out, but you at least get an idea.
Yeah.
And based on I think guiding based on the situation, you're able to make adjustments easier. I know I am. Like every day, I always take the approach, if I don't know everything, and every day that I learn something, especially in fishing, is a good day. The day that I say I know it all, I mean, I'm confident in what I do, but I definitely don't know it all, and I won't be afraid to tell people I learned something.
I'm going to tell you what. I'm with you. I certainly don't know it all. And I learn from clients all the time. But yesterday, I fished old school. I didn't have power poles.
Okay.
So I had to anchor.
Joe Cruz is listening from Power Pole or watching.
Well, hey, he hooked me up.
Oh,
today,
that's right. He hooked you up. All right.
No, they hooked me up. No complaints with power pole. I didn't have them yesterday.
Yeah.
So
that went old school.
And I had a guy fall in my boat on Thursday because I didn't fish Friday, Saturday. Had a guy fall on my boat. He just stepped right off the deck into the floor. Boom. Put a pretty good knot on his leg, and he bled a lot in the boat. And he used one of my towels. So at the end of the day, he didn't. I mean, personally, I would have taken the towel and threw it away, but he just left his bloody towel on my boat. So when I got back to my house, I pulled up underneath my boat, or up onto the boat lift, and I lifted the boat up, and I grabbed my dehooker. I don't know, do y'all use a dehooker?
I have one. I don't use it.
Not everybody does.
Yeah.
Who doesn't use a
I don't
dehooker?
think Travis does.
I don't.
What?
I have one. I just don't use it.
Well, I'm religious with the hooker. Because I didn't want to touch this towel, I picked it up, with my hooker and took it away.
I would have loved to be there to watch this.
Yeah.
You snob.
Well, I left my hooker on my cleaning table.
Yeah. So you didn't have that.
So all day yesterday.
So you're a caveman. And no power pole, no de-hooker.
Power pole, and we caught 57 fish and a stingray yesterday. These kids were counting.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Don't lie, you were counting.
No, I wasn't. But I do got a clicker. One of my clients sent me a clicker.
Don't start the clicker.
Him and Travis with these clickers.
No, I haven't put it on the boat yet, but I'm gonna.
You know what a clicker? You know what? With a clicker, you can't lie anymore. You got the number right there.
Lie,
you can't
man.
guess.
It makes for a better. It's the journey, man. It's the journey of the trip. You don't want to be exact.
I mean,
I can see Travis with a clicker. Click, click, click.
I got one now.
I guess Mr. Technical.
I call
it. Well, that's a half.
Well, actually, no, I could see
on there.
I could see Travis with a clicker. I could see Rick with a chalkboard.
Yeah,
chalkboard on the back.
Yeah,
he's on the tally.
That's more my speed.
Right,
but I got to
put one down for Johnny.
I got a clicker
got
now.
5. Let me cross that one.
Yeah.
Do you remember the old buttons that used to hit and it said that was easy?
That was easy. Yeah.
I had one of those on the boat for a while.
No.
Yeah.
The what?
You press it and it said that was easy.
Yeah, I know. I remember what you're talking about.
I had one of those. I kept on the boat for a while. Somebody catch a fish and I hit it. That was easy. But yeah, so I was old schooling it all day yesterday.
Yep. That's it. Hey, I often think about.
It lasted one day. It sounds like.
It sucks.
Yeah, man, it does. It really does. I mean, technology's come a long way in boats. And
give me a de-hooker and my power pole's back.
Well, I think we all have 2 power poles and trolling motor and good electronics, right? And so many clients get on the boat. They're like, "What does that thing do? What does that thing do?" When I tell them, they're like, "What?"
Here's the
that, and I'm like, "Yeah."
How are we sitting here?
And they're like, "I guess you don't need an anchor." And nope.
Oh my God!
They can't stop asking me questions about it, and I love it. But I mean, it really is like, it wasn't that long ago we didn't have these things.
Have you ever been power pole down for 15 minutes and someone say, "Are we drifting?"
Yeah.
And you're like,
"How are we sitting here?"
Well, I don't know how we're just sitting. I didn't see you put out an anchor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's happened. Yeah.
We've been in this exact spot for 15 minutes.
My question to them is, how do you not know about power pole? But
hey,
dude,
I get people on the boat who never used a fishing reel. I don't expect them to know about a power pole.
You know what's funny is I know that I always think, how do you not know about power pole?
Old
so
school
many people don't, and Power Pole has to know that because they stay up to date with stuff. They keep the guides.
Right.
They want them
Well,
on the
let me
back
ask
of our
you this.
boats. They take care of us. So they have to know there's people who don't know about Power. But I don't know how they don't know about. I'm like, how do you? They're like, what is that? What's them spider legs? I'm like, what are you talking about? Spider legs? You're like,
Jason, it's not that hard to fathom because we could turn this thing around right here and start asking you about questions on this computer, and you'll never heard of that part ever.
Yeah,
this is true.
You'll be like, "What's a processor? What's a?" That's about all I can name. But,
Yeah.
Rick,
but I mean, you know what I'm saying
trust me.
is in our field, I can get it. Like, I mean, there's stuff my wife likes to buy for shoes or purses.
yeah,
or
but they don't have a
something. I don't know.
processor on a bass boat. Like,
Yeah.
but everybody knows bass fishing. That's where it throws me off. But I mean, I like it because it basically every time they ask me,
It's a good conversation after that.
it proves that we're still worthy
Right.
to promote products on the boat.
Absolutely.
It shows that not everybody knows about them. GPS, GPS trolling motor.
Yeah, that one I was going to say next is I've had some customers just like sit there and just in awe, like put the rod down. You got to look at this GPS troll motor, and they're like, "That's going to keep us right here." I'm like, "Yeah." And they just look at it and they see it work, and they're like trying to make sure I'm not touching the remote or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Hey, hands off, man.
I like
I'm
how
baiting hooks here. Go ahead."
I like when they do it, but you've been fishing for an hour and they have not realized that you're not drifting.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying with the power poles. 15 minutes into it, and they're like, "Are we drifting?"
Yeah, I'm like, do you feel like you're drifted?
Yeah.
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 Well, on my boat, I don't have a spot lock, so my trolling motor is just an old knee
Rick's
knocker.
that guy that gets on my boat and he
You
goes,
are a caveman.
But
dude, he is
and
an
I
old
love
knee
my knee
knocker.
knocker,
Yeah, I'm
man.
just kidding, man.
I
know.
I do like what the spot locks do, and I'm
Rick's
not
that
saying
guy
I'll
that
never
gets on
have
my
one.
boat.
Yeah.
I might, but there's no question that power pole, at least on my boat, because I don't have the spot. I mean, it is the most promotable item I have, and it's funny because if they're from the south, they know about power
What
pole.
about when you
But-
go to get your anchor and you got that extension cord reel with your rope in it? That's promoted.
Yeah, but I don't do much of that. I don't do much anchoring.
Every time I see that, I'm asking what
Oh,
is.
yeah.
I've asked them like 20 times.
What?
My anchor,
Rick's.
my anchor line for everybody out there.
Oh, you got an extension cord reel?
Yeah.
Oh, that's genius.
Thank you.
It's funny, but
I saw a guy.
That's genius. If there are people still using anchors, that's genius.
No, it's a
Well,
good idea.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
it actually works, but
out
it's
in-
all. You don't even have like the color. It's orange.
Sure,
like
sure.
Construction
Oh, I think that's
orange.
great. I think
it's
that's
the Home
great.
Depot one. Yeah,
gonna go get
I saw a guy up in Canada when I was up there in 2007. This guy was a one of those professional crappie anglers, and he was pre-fishing this lake that we were at. And I was watching him. You know, he had an all decked out boat and everything. You know, and I'm watching this guy and
He pulls out
and
the reel.
not
I think it's
crappie,
genius.
walleye, not crappie.
Every time I want to get my anchor out, it's tangled.
And he, you know, we're fishing in 30 foot of water. You ain't using no power pole. So he pulls this thing out, and I see him take this thing and spin it like that, and rope started coming off of it. And I really started
That's
paying
genius.
attention.
Did you go there and ask him?
No, I just
Oh,
watched
you
him.
kept it quiet
I
and
just
stole his
watched him.
idea,
Yeah,
huh?
and I said, okay,
You
I know what
snake.
you're doing. So, man, as soon as I got back to Tampa, straight to Home Depot, got me a
Yeah,
power.
I think that's great.
It's awesome.
I don't use an anchor often.
No tangled lines
But I
ever.
guarantee you every time I do, I spend, one of two things happen. I spend 20 minutes
Untangling
untangling,
line.
or I spend 10 minutes and give up.
I don't have a big deal because I feed it in and then I pull it out.
Well, you can feed a line in, and it'll still get tangled somehow.
That's the knot demons.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
The rope demons.
My boat's got knot demons.
Yeah, that's just, I'm
It's
with you
funny.
there.
Every time I see Rick out there, boy, he's got the reel.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it works like a
He's
champ.
like he's reeling a fish in, but he's got anchor line.
Hey, I'm telling you, you can laugh all you want. And you know what? I've been laughed about that. And I've been laughed about putting a wheel chock under my tire at the ramp.
Hey,
We didn't need a wheel chock today, did we?
No, we
needed
didn't.
a wheel chock the other way.
No, we didn't need
We
a wheel
almost
chock.
put the new boat in the.
I about put Jason's boat on the ramp.
Yeah, it was ugly. It was
Damn.
ugly. That's for another show. We don't have enough
Yeah,
time
no,
for
we
that
got
one.
enough time for that one.
But
I should have took a picture of that dude. That's what I should have done.
dude, I didn't want to move. And I didn't want to move an ounce of
I
weight
should have took
in
a
that
picture
boat.
of that
Yep.
boat. It was hanging off 6 foot.
Yeah.
well, we got a couple minutes left, guys. So let me toss something out there fishing related, because I know what I'm itching to do with what it feels like. I'll tell you what, I was fishing out around the bridge a little bit on Thursday.
Saw some rollers?
No, but I was covered in love bugs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was
Yeah.
That's the old
covered
saying.
in
when
them.
the love bugs show, the tarpon are
See,
here.
for me, it's always white butterflies. You guys ever hear that?
No.
Never heard of.
Yeah.
No.
That was always it. When you see the white butterflies, somebody back me up on this that's watching.
Knocked you out.
Well, how come we don't have it here?
Man, the computer shut down and restarted on its own.
Yeah.
I got the comments right here.
That's good.
But the white butterflies were always it for me, but the love bugs, you can't ignore them. I mean, I saw a couple of my buddies who run out of that O'Neill's and Maximo area, and if you were at the Skyway Bridge today or the last couple of days, I mean, your boat was covered. I don't mean
they were bad.
I don't mean
almost run you
a
out
couple.
of there.
I mean, your boat looks like it just got splatter painted with black paint. That's
Yeah.
how bad it was. So,
well, we're getting close. They're poking down south. I got word today on the phone that they're down south. So it's usually a couple weeks out on the beaches here, and then we got a resident fish. I've got to get out. I've got quite a few tarpon trips booked.
Me too, man.
For mid-May, I hate to say it, I'm not really looking forward to it.
I start May 9th.
Yeah, I've got
it's
somewhere around there. But I'm gonna have to take a day and then I got the IFA on the 18th. By the way, guys, IFA has been moved to Crystal River.
Yep.
They're gonna relocate pretty much all the time. They haven't said anything for Boca Grande, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But the Tampa.
Well, that's the second event for us, right?
Yeah.
So they have a little more time to figure that out.
Yeah, they're moving the Tampa event to Crystal River, so I've got that. That's on the 18th. I've got a couple days actually open this month, and they're during that week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably going to be in Crystal River pre-fishing for that. So, but I need to get out and check some tarpon stuff. I'm going to wait till next week. Let this weather kind of average out and
I'll tell you what, I'm going to let the traffic for this weekend settle down. We got King of the Beach.
Yep.
And no wind.
Yeah.
There's going to be some boats moving around somewhere out there.
There's going to be 38-foot $1 million yellowfins running to the Keys.
They never
and
get
back.
good weather for that time.
I know, never. It's looking very good.
Well,
Yeah,
the
good
winter's
for them.
probably going to be caught on Egmont Channel.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the funniest thing. They got these big old boats,
Yeah.
and somebody catches the winter at the Skyway.
Yeah, it's happened.
I mean, they're running 100 miles.
I wish for sake of and it may be or not, I don't know if it is, but I would love them to open the whole entire event to the guys fishing on the Skyway Pier and for one of them to win it.
Wouldn't that be something?
God, I would love that. That would be it for me.
Could you imagine how bad
Just not the guy who throws lead at me.
Yeah. So could you imagine the war going off? They actually had a tournament.
Oh my God, there'd be so
and
many
people were getting bait down
they'd
there?
be tangled up all the time.
Oh
They'd be tangled
my
up with each other, but yeah.
It would be bad. They'd have to have cops out there just.
It would just
case.
be extremely gratifying for the $1 million boat to get beat out by the guy on the pier. That would just make my day.
The pier fishermen.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
30-mile limit. Yeah, that's true. I don't know much about the kingfish tournaments. Never was my thing. I'm more the redfish tournaments or kingfish for fun. But
I never done the king deal. I mean, it looks cool, but I don't know. I don't have that big of a boat, and for that.
And it's always windy.
Yeah, it's always windy, and I don't know. I haven't got into it, but it does look like a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but
some good money in it too.
Well, guys, we're gonna go get dinner.
Yeah.
It's been a great show. Next Monday, don't forget to tune in. We'll have some more great information. We'll have some more great fishing reports. Don't forget to like our page. If you like what you see, we always like when people like our page.
Yeah.
And share our show. If you think somebody you know would like it, share it through message or on Facebook. And if you'd like to give us a call for a charter, I know I've got a couple days open in May, 813-727-9890, steadyactionfishingcharters.com.
813-601-2900.
Real simple.
Real simple.
There you go. Mine's 813-625-2067, localknowledgefishing.com.
And we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next Monday. Tight lines.
Yep. See ya.